Hi, everyone. I'm here today with Sydney. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Sydney Ribeiro. I am a current senior at Hofstra University, and I took the AIFS Shakespeare Globe program last summer, 2023.
That is awesome. Can I ask why you chose that program specifically?
Yeah, so when I was looking for studying abroad, I was very specific. Something that I always wanted to do was study abroad in London for theater. At my specific university, they have a really hard time with my major in studying abroad since there's a lot of classes that we have to take on campus in the spring and the fall. So something that really worked out well was that this was a summer program, so it didn't have to interfere with the typical classwork that I had to take every semester. And I also had a couple friends who did it the year prior who had glowing responses about their experiences. So I knew it was a good fit for me.
Yeah, that's great. I'm a musical theater major, so it's hard to find a time to get to leave during the semester. Getting to go during the summertime, I bet, was awesome. So as you reflect on your time when you were abroad, were there any academic goals or personal goals you set for yourself? And did you achieve those goals or did you make any progress on them?
Yeah, for sure. So one of my main things was just really exploring the city and getting, a holistic learning experience of like the history on my part of the end and also just how theater is kind of done there. And I feel really happy with my experience there. I actually visited the British Museum, so I learned a lot about, history through that. And it was really cool to see, what they thought was important to put in their history museum. And I was also walking past tour groups of elementary school, middle school kids to see like, what, growing up in London, what a student might be learning on a day-to-day basis at a field trip. So that was really cool. I also got to see a ton of shows while I was there. Some highlights, I got to see Moulin Rouge, which is one of my favorites. And I got to see some performers that I've been following on Instagram and YouTube for a while who were in it. So that was really great experience. And I also got to see Oklahoma, which was a revival that transferred from Broadway to London. And I hadn't been able to see it on Broadway. So I was very excited to see this particular production since it was so different from the original in London and also see kind of the reaction a London theater would have to an American production.
Yeah, I love West End productions. I think that they're so awesome. And specifically, like you said, theater in London is so different than in America. I got to see a couple of shows too when I went, and it's very, very experimental, I feel like. Like the things that they do, I was like, whoa, all the different ways that they stage their productions and the different characters they have. It really is interesting. So definitely I feel like if you go to London, you get the chance to see a show, whether it is West End or any other smaller production, I think it's definitely worth it because you won't get to see stuff like that in America. And definitely museums too. I think everyone always is like, oh, it's just like a museum, but really it holds so much history and London has such a rich history. So to get to see all of that on display is something really awesome. So that's great that you got to do that. And is there something that you learned when you were on your program that you may not have if you didn't study abroad?
So my program was very specialized. So I was doing Shakespeare stuff at the Globe. A lot of acting mainly was the focus, and we did some literature analysis as well. But something that I wasn't really aware of was the way that I guess Shakespeare was intended to be performed, or at least the way they do it at the Globe. My school's very big on Shakespeare. I've seen a lot of Shakespeare, done a lot of study here. Over there in the Globe, they do it a very different way. It's in a very unique space where you are performing to people in front of you, above you, and on the sides of you. So learning about keeping almost a 360 perspective of audiences in your mind while you're performing and keeping your whole body alive was something new. And the connection that every actor made with the audience member, it was so collaborative, audience member and actors with the storytelling, and seeing that live was so thrilling because the audience were in the story almost, because the actors would be talking to each other and then they'd look at the audience member and be talking to the audience member about the struggles that they're having with the actor that's on stage, and the monologues and soliloquies would also be talking as a heart to heart with a friend in the audience. So that kind of connection is not something I've ever seen in Shakespeare before, and it made it a lot more digestible since it is a difficult language, and make a lot more sense from a modern perspective to kind of have this fostering relationship with each actor and their story that they're telling.
Yeah, I felt the same way, seeing Shakespeare done when I was in London, it really made me be like, "Oh, I understand this so much easier now." And just, like, seeing where it was, like, taking place also just makes it make more sense. But, yeah, it's so special to be able to kinda take this different language truly than what we speak now, and I mean, I feel like we've read it so much back in the United States, like, growing up in school, like, you've had to read, like, Romeo and Juliet or stuff like that, but really to, like, see it and understand it is something totally different, so that's such a special opportunity to get to do. And also just you might have, like, some talents and strengths that become better when you're abroad that you may not have thought would have become better than they were in the United States. Did you really witness this happening at all? Like, if any of your talents suddenly shone while you were abroad?
Specifically with my performance, at my school, we have a speech class, a movement class, and an acting class. And speech and movement are taught by the same professors for all 4 years while I'm here. So it's very, their curriculum, and you kind of work with them throughout the 4 years. And that's nice. You get to build that relationship with that professor and kind of really know what they are looking for and learn their style of performing in those aspects. But working with different people in those same subjects, I found really enlightening. Sometimes I don't always see eye to eye with my movement professor, but the movement professor overseas presented the material in a much different way that I've never really thought about it. And so I got a little bit more out of my head and was able to explore my physicality in a way that was a lot more relaxed and calm environment that really allowed me to explore and have fun with it. And I feel some kind of freedom that I've never really felt with physicality before. So that was really nice. And I also have kind of struggled with performing Shakespeare because it is a difficult talent. And I've worked on it here at Hofstra many a time because, like I said, Hofstra is a big Shakespeare school, but I never felt like it really clicked. And being abroad with all the way the course was set up is you work with a ton of different people at the Globe and hearing all of their perspectives and kind of helping you see a lot of different ways to take Shakespeare and perform it and make it a lot more relatable and closer to home for you. That all really clicked so that by the final performance that we did through the classes, I really felt like I understood how to perform Shakespeare, and that was a really good experience.
Totally, yeah. I am in the same boat as you with, like, when you're in college and you're working with the same professors for your classes, you already kinda know what feedback they're gonna give and, like, what they expect, so to get a different opinion from someone else, especially with something as challenging as Shakespeare and stuff like that, I think that that is so beneficial, to be able to kinda take that with you and bring that back with you, back to your home university so you can kind of improve on that while back in the United States. As we said, London is such a big city, and there's so much history and culture, and there's a lot of different backgrounds in the city too. Was there a time, where the differences in backgrounds impacted your interactions with others?
I found a lot of people in London to be extremely welcoming and very excited to interact with Americans. I once was getting lunch at a place for fish and chips, and right off the bat, they know you're American because you're speaking
Yep.
in an American accent. And like, so they were very excited, and they're because it was a local place because we were staying in Tufnell Park, which was not like in the heart of the city by no means. So they were like, "Oh, where are you from? Like, why why are you here?" That kind of thing, and very excited. Talking about different backgrounds too, something that I didn't even think about before I went was being in a program with other American students, but at different universities. Because I had never really talked to anyone else from a different theater program before. Like I have friends that go to different universities, but they're studying, a bunch of different topics, and there is kind of a niche with pursuing theater as your college career and following career. So like hearing that unique experience at different universities and what those students were kind of going through, what kind of classes they were learning, and kind of how their training has been different from mine was really enlightening and really cool.
Yeah, that's great. Truly getting to learn just like what other theater programs are like at different universities, I think is a really good opportunity because once you're like kind of stuck in your bubble of like your homeschool, like you're taking classes with all the same people, all the same professors, but to get the perspective of outside students, I think that that is also something really great too. And just being abroad out of the United States, was there any time where you were kind of being more sustainable or being more green, in your lifestyle? And do you think if you did, would you bring any of that back to the United States with you now?
I think part of this was also living in such a what's the word? Public transit city.
Yeah.
It was so easy to get around. I was using the tube all the time. I was walking places, using the bus system, and there was never even a thought in my mind that I would even need a car to get anywhere. So just the really ease of getting around from place to place was really nice. And that's something that I kind of want to keep in mind living closer to transit and being able to use those facilities as much as possible to limit, emissions from cars and whatnot. I think that is really helpful. I also really loved walking to like farmer markets because they are lots of farmer markets in London. So it was really nice to go and get fresh like produce every single day. I often got apples. They had very cheap apples, so I would get those for breakfast before I go to class or whatnot. I got other fruits and vegetables as well. Some stuff I'd cook back at my place. So I think really utilizing like the ability of eating from the source from a farmer market was really nice as well.
Yeah, I think that's like the number one thing that everyone says is like public transportation and like walkability of places. That is something that I think is really, really great about cities like London or like I went to Dublin, stuff like that, where you're really able to just take public transportation. You don't need a car, and it's just so much better for the environment. And even like walk to the grocery store, stuff like that is really great. And it makes you realize, like, when you go back to the United States, if you don't live in a place with public transportation, you're like, wow, I am driving like everywhere and I like can't take a bus, I can't walk. And yeah, I wish that that was more available to us back in the US, but being able to do that abroad really puts things in perspective, I feel. So I just have one more question left for you. Is there any advice that you would give people who are planning to study abroad or thinking about it?
I think mainly it's, take that final step. Don't be afraid of the unknown and be more excited about what you might gain from the experience. It's so hard to put in perspective what you'll learn from a global transition like this, but you'll have a lot more perspective no matter where you go on how people act in different arenas and culture, how people, walk around day to day, how what they think is funny versus what they think is serious. When people eat like certain times of the day, like all of that, I think is just such an empowering experience. And you can learn a lot from other cultures and bring that back home to improve yourself as a person.
For sure. Being open minded, I think, is just one of the best things you could do if you're planning on going abroad and just kind of taking in everything that this opportunity is going to give you. So I totally agree with what you said. Well, thank you so much, Sydney, for joining us today.
Thank
And
you.
thank all of you for watching and listening. And thank you.
Bye.